What's up, Doc? Welcome to the Docs Get Money podcast. Are you a badass doctor killing it professionally and has bigger dreams than just clocking in and out of the hospital? Do you want to leave behind a legacy that is as lit as an HBCU homecoming? Want to know how other doctors are getting to the big bag? That's right, making 5, 6, and 7 figures without putting on the white coat? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Kimberly, but you can call me Kim or KB. I went from being a burnt out and overwhelmed emergency physician to the founder and CEO of 2 6-figure non-clinical companies and beating burnout along the way. I'm also your business coach, here to help you make money moves to change the world. This podcast isn't just about making money, though. It's about leveling up your life, mindset, and bank account so you can build an empire that's as iconic as Beyonce. You ready? Let's get into it. Hey, Doc. Burned out? Ready to just burn the whole hospital down? Well, let's start a fire. Okay, no, not in the hospital, but in your bank account. And from side hustler to CEO, my signature one-on-one business coaching program, you'll transform your burnout into a fire and start your own profitable coaching, consulting, or midterm rental business and make clinical cash in 90 days or less. That's right, 4 or 5 figures in 90 days or less. This is only for doctors who are done being overworked and undervalued and need a way out of the hospital now. With your fire offer, you're not just dreaming about escaping clinical practice, you're building your own emergency exit. In 90 days, you could be your own boss, making bank, and actually enjoying your life again. So are you ready to swap those singed scrubs for CEO status? Then hit me up at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram with the word burn, and let's turn that burnout into the bag. What's up, Doc? Welcome to yet another episode of the Docs Get Money podcast. And today is another interview episode, but this one has been, in the words of Yo Gotti, a long time coming. It's been a lot of dope running, hustling, trying to dodge these cases. No, I'm just kidding. It has been definitely a long time coming. I have the very amazing RaDonna Reed on this podcast episode today. And she's not a physician, you guys, but that does not matter at all. She is my personal coach, my life coach, who I met back in 2023 at a conference for entrepreneurs, and not just any type of entrepreneur, really historically marginalized. So it was women, people of color, LGBTQ, all kinds of different things. And the way we met has been really, really special and interesting. And I'm really excited to have her on. Like I said, it's been a long time coming because I have been asking her since I decided to do this podcast to please, please, please come on. Let me interview you. But before we jumped on today, we were just talking about just divine timing. And when the time is right, the time is right. And so when interviews need to happen, they happen. So I'm happy to have her on we're saying the almost 1 year anniversary of the Docs Get Money podcast. But RaDonna, I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Let me read your introduction. Let me read your bio, because she's going to knock your socks off, guys. Not only is RaDonna a coach, not only is she a life coach, but she is a life coach who specifically uses the tool of tarot cards to help women, her clients, anyone that comes into her orbit really live their most authentic, full life and actually feel empowered over the things that are occurring. That's just the best way I can describe it. I'm sure you would probably describe it just a little bit differently. But like I said, I met RaDonna in January of 2023 when my life was really falling apart. I was in a very nasty, trying to leave a very nasty relationship, getting a divorce from legit a narcissist, and was doing all kinds of crazy things. I had just started Sherwood Properties and was really trying to scale that
to make $1 million. And that's part of the reason why I was at this conference, because the coach that I was working with at the time was having this. This was her very first conference that she had in Puerto Rico. And I'm just like, say less, girl. I need to be on the beach somewhere relaxing and just kind of just decompressing from it all. And if I remember right, I forgot what she called them. RaDonna, you could probably remind me, but she called them brain dates. That's what they were. We could
Yes.
sign up for brain dates with people where, of course, there were speakers at the conference, but if you wanted to like offer a service or give like a mini talk on something, that you could just like meet up with people and actually do that. And so I was going through the app and I saw RaDonna and a couple other people, don't get me wrong, doing tarot readings and stuff like that. I'm just like, I'm just gonna go with her. Like, there was something about RaDonna that just drew me to her. And yes, there were other tarot readers at the conference, but there was something about her. And funny enough, I almost canceled it because we were in the middle of lunch. It was just a really busy day. And I was like, can we reschedule it? And she's like, no, we can't. Like, I'm busy too. And I'm like, well, I respect this girl. Let me just go ahead and bring my ass and sit here and get this tarot reading. And I remember, and I have the recording still on my phone, I believe. And you pulled some cards for me, and you told me so much about myself. About, I think you pulled like a king or a queen. One of you always pull a major arcana card for me. It always seems
Hmm.
like, and it gave me so much inspiration. It gave me so much hope. It gave me so much, what do I say? Everything that I needed at that moment, because literally it felt like my life was falling apart. And that was the beginning of me having a absolutely transformative year. That 2023 is when Sherwood Properties didn't make seven figures, but I did hit six figures my first full year of business. I started coaching, and just so many different things happened. I did finally get out of that relationship.
Hmm.
I found myself a lot more in a new and a deeper way than I had ever had before. And honestly, it really, I think, started with the reading that RaDonna gave me. So, saying all that to say, yes, I was born and raised a Christian girl. I have the utmost most respect for traditional Christianity, but there's something that's so powerful, like I said, about using tarot as a tool. And you can talk, we can, this is the longest introduction I've ever given because I'm trying to brag on you at the same time.
It's hard to
Um,
summarize. It's so much.
it's so much to say, I know. Um, but yeah, there's something that's so powerful about tarot. And I love the fact that I found someone to use it in a way that it's empowering and it's not this hoogity boogity devil worshiping um thing that I was really ingrained to believe. And
Hmm.
not only that, and the reason why I have her on the podcast, y'all, not only because she's an entrepreneur and a business coach, I mean, and a life coach, but more specifically because I feel like the insights that I have gotten from her readings, with her readings, and then with my own personal exploration with tarot has been so life changing and so helpful for me as a self care tool. And I know that you're going to probably talk about that
Hmm.
as well too. So, anyways, long introduction. Let me actually read her real introduction, you guys. So, RaDonna Reed is a seasoned tarot reader, educator, and entrepreneur with 8 years of professional experience guiding women towards clarity, confidence, and purposeful living. In 2024, she founded Inspo Studio in Columbus, Ohio, a one of a kind tarot salon designed to blend self discovery with community and creativity. With a background in communications and women's advocacy, Info Studio is the girl's girl of tarot readings. While she continues to teach and mentor through RaDonna now builds strategic relationships, curates transformative events, and leads her business vision, creating a space where women can reconnect with themselves and step into their next chapter with confidence. Well, that was a lot more eloquently said then I kind of just rambled on. But RaDonna, again, welcome to the Docs Get Money podcast. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and excited to be part of this and tell, I think, our story and just talk about tarot. Like, I think
Yeah.
that just gets me going.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourselves. Now, in audience, full transparency, some things I do know about RaDonna, and some things we're going to be learning right along aside each other. I do know that we're both Midwest girls, so we have a lot of symbiosis from just being from the Midwest. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
tell us about yourself in your own words.
sure. Well, as you can imagine, I did not go to college for tarot reading. I accidentally discovered tarot and it became my whole life.
Hmm.
But working backwards where it started, uh, I I think I want to say that my first heartbreak was not from a boy. It was because I didn't get captain my first year as a freshman soccer player. I was devastated. Like, I was so distraught and
Hmm.
so entitled. Like, I was just like, I worked so hard. Why didn't I get this thing? I did all these things. And I bring that up because my perfectionist tendencies and my overachieving, like, I couldn't just be on the varsity team. I couldn't just be like a starter. Like, I had to be the captain.
Hmm.
And that kind of overachieving, um, goal oriented way led me to a lot of destructive behaviors
Hmm.
and a lot of really harmful habits that I was conditioned and told were good.
Hmm.
Being highly productive, being all the things. By the time I ended high school, I was the homecoming queen, the MVP captain soccer player, the National Honor Society president, and I was on every committee that you could imagine. Like, if I could do it, I was going to do it. And
Hmm.
if I could excel at it, if I could like rise up in the ranks, I was like, sign me up. I'm not going for the secretary. I'm not just going to be a member. I have to be the president.
Right.
It was just kind of this like way of proving my value and my
Hmm.
worth.
Hmm.
And at the time, of course, I thought it was just so grand. Like, I wish I had exhibits like to produce, but one of my senior pictures in high school is literally me surrounded by all of my certificates and trophies and all of these things that I like earned.
Hmm.
And it just, when I look at it now, I'm like, oh, you were doing something. Like, you thought you were, you thought you were onto something there. And as proud as I am of like the effort that I put into my life, that did not serve me well mentally from the time I was in college until probably I was 30.
Hmm.
So those things that I was being like praised and given positive feedback for conditioned me to like take on more and to just keep doing more and keep
Yeah.
doing more. And then suddenly I'm in college and I'm juggling two internships at any given time, two jobs. I was working on the school newspaper at the time. It was a physical, real newspaper that we printed. Um, so, like, it was not uncommon for me to have like almost 24-hour days at least twice a week.
Wow.
And I think you could probably relate to that, like some of the early work that you put in, like you're just up and you're moving.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still physically and mentally recovering from that period of time because it was just on, on, on. Like if I wasn't working my waitressing job until 1 or 2 in the morning, I was like
Hmm.
up studying, or I was up working on the newspaper, or finishing a
Hmm.
project, or doing something. Like it was just a period of time where I started realizing that it was not a sustainable way to live, but I
Yeah.
thought like that's just what you were supposed
That's
to
what you
do.
do. Yeah, that's just what you
Hmm.
do. Um,
Yeah.
that's so relatable. When you said you wish you had a picture, I immediately thought about Beyonce, when she did self-titled and you
And she
know,
like,
yeah, she's like smashing all of the, like she's got all these
hmm,
trophies around her and she's just like
pretty hurts.
Pretty Hurts and all of these things that she just kind of just like poured herself into. So that's immediately where my mind went to. But that's so relatable, I think, as well too. I wasn't as driven in high school, but of course, anyone that comes into college as a pre-med major, and I don't remember what you said your major was in college,
It was journalism.
journalism, but still it's just like you put so much effort into getting the A, getting the grade so you can get the scholarship, so you can go to the school, so you can have the degree, so you can, get the job, so you can go get the master's or do whatever you're going to do. I relate to that because I feel like I was very intense in
Hmm.
undergrad as well too, and that's what we're just expected to do, is just achieve these things and get these accolades for what? To be, like you said, to
For
prove your
what?
value, to prove that you're better, to prove that you can
Exactly.
do the work. So,
And I think for me, what was really challenging is I was studying journalism, literally learning how to do layout design for a paper, like a magazine or a newspaper. So at the time, it was a recession, and newspapers were like falling apart. Like
mhm.
like journalism was having a major shift into digital. And at that, so I started to feel like severe stress, like just severe, like, what is next? Because it was hard enough to get editor jobs. It was hard enough to get writer jobs. It was hard enough to be in that industry anyway. Like, it was a very competitive industry. But then when you added the recession on top of it, it was just like, so what are we doing? Like, we were just like, this is fun. Like, I'm physically learning how to print a magazine while they
Everything is
are
going digital.
cutting. Yes, I'm just like, whew. I mean, that just created this. I don't even know what it was in my body, but it was just like these parts of me were colliding.
Hmm.
And I think the only way that I saw myself moving forward is if I did something on my own. So I didn't even apply for jobs after school. I just kept
Hmm.
waitressing. And I started my own publication called Out Loud Magazine. And it was for women to live life louder. There's a thread. There's a thread in my work.
Let me pause you right here. So the Docket Money listeners will know Dr. Biasha Jones, who is my client, and she's a life coach as well too. Her business is called Be Out Loud, to help people to live more authentically, live
Yes,
themselves. So I'm like, okay, y'all need to meet each other.
definitely. I would be
Okay.
honored. Like, yes. Excuse me. I I had this vision, because if I could go back, I probably would not have gone to college. Like, if I could like
Hmm.
go and tell 18-year-old me something else, it would be to travel, to get out of the Midwest bubble, to get out of the to see things.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things that came out of college that I just that changed the way that I thought about my life and what I wanted to do and how to show up.
Hmm.
And it was at the time they were called women's studies classes, and it just I by first class I started to realize, like, she started describing all of these things. The professor was describing these things that I cared about deeply. But then
Hmm.
she was like, raise your hand if you think you're a feminist. And like nobody raised their hand. You know, we're just
Hmm.
all like,
I'm
ew,
an
like
independent.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause back then, and even still in a way, it's a dirty word to say that you're a
Yeah.
feminist. Yeah.
And growing up in the Midwest, like even though inside all of my values were progressive, were like, you know, we're all about like women's rights, and um, I was raised in a conservative environment. And taking these classes, I was like, wait, I think I might be a feminist. And I think that might mean something. So the magazine that I started was essentially a feminist magazine,
Hmm.
but I struggled with it. So I was like hustling. I was like going to all these like networking events. I was just emailing CEOs like, "Hello, I am doing this thing. Would you meet with me?" Like I
Yeah.
was just like going for the top. Like I
Absolutely.
ran for it. The challenge with it was I didn't know how to really land it. Like, I
Hmm.
didn't know how to navigate it and take it somewhere, but I was hustling for it, whatever it was.
Hmm.
It ended up being a digital publication, and it led me to actually getting a magazine editing job at a local business called The Women's Book.
Hmm.
And we got to feature all of these women in power positions, CEOs, business owners, executive directors, like all of these incredible women. And I'm just like, okay, this is cool. I'm like 20 and I'm just like thinking everything's amazing. Like
Yeah.
this is wild. But I think at that time I realized that I was not meant to be someone's employee. That like I hated like I physically like was so tired. I still from I think college and just hustling and this dream that I had that I didn't know how to really make happen. That I showing up to that job every day, like getting in my car and driving to it, even though it was the coolest job, like I just I couldn't do it. Like it was just eating me alive on the inside.
Yep. And funny enough, I relate to that as well too because before I went to college, I had a job. I had a couple of jobs. Um, I worked at Target, and then I worked at my cousin's grocery store. And the Target job, I just remember, I'm like, why am I? This is not. I knew then, like I couldn't have been like 16 or 17 years old. I'm like, yeah, I
Like this
cannot
is
be an
not for me.
employee. Like I need to be
Yeah.
in charge of this because why are you asking me these questions? Why are you nitpick like you said, getting in the
Hmm.
car, or for me, like getting dropped off or taking the bus? And yeah, I had a hard time with that. But that's part of the reason that I was driven to be a doctor because it's just like, oh, the doctor's in charge. So ain't no
Yes,
boss
everyone
over me.
listens to the doctor.
Everybody listen to the doctor. So yeah, I'm the one that's running all of this stuff. Now that's not 100% true, but that in our daily to do things, yes, we're usually the ones facilitating everything. But yes, doctors still have bosses, but it's just like, yeah, no, I need to be the boss. I need to be the one in charge of all this because ain't nobody gonna
Yeah,
tell me nothing. I knew that's when
exactly.
I was meant to be an entrepreneur, I think, as well
Like
too, so I
you're
could
just
be the
looking at
boss of
things like
myself.
you make
Yeah.
a face like that. Okay, that doesn't make sense.
That
Okay,
don't make no
fine.
sense. Why
I
are we
won't do
doing
that.
that? Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I just like I don't know. I just it was just not my favorite thing. And I literally asked to go back to being an independent contractor with them. So I was like hired as a full time employee and then was just like, I can't work this way. Like, I need to be in my own space. I need, like, all of this work is digital. I go and I meet people, like, I'm networking, I'm still doing that. So I literally on my birthday was like, I would like to be back to a contractor because this is a lot for me.
Yep.
Um, and I think still at this point, I was still trying to conform. Like I was still trying to figure out like how to fit into this professional women's world. Like
Hmm.
I was just like, okay, I'm me, but I got to be less me if I want
Mm.
to shake hands and be in the same room and speak the language of these women
Right.
that I admired so much. And it's interesting that we're recording this today, like you said, divine timing, because I got a notification of 10 years ago. I was on a committee, and we were doing, like, of course, I was on a committee, like, I was doing all the stuff. And I, we did a morning event that like 80 people showed up to.
Wow.
Um, and I'm just like, of course this didn't work out for me because I mean it's an old Instagram picture that you use the
Hmm.
filters on. But literally, I hope this can be seen. It is just a sea of navy and black and beige like
Yeah.
colors, and it like I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I was really trying to fit into something where I was not this. And I wanted to be this so much that I was
Yeah.
willing to conform. And it's funny that you mentioned Beyonce already because I was thinking, I'm like, the way I would show up to events like this was like partly me and partly the professional
Yeah.
woman, me seriously. So I would wear like a peplum shirt with like a pencil skirt, and my hair was platinum blonde, but I had the Beyonce bob.
Okay.
You
I'm
know, the
seeing it. Yes.
like it was sharp. It was nice. It looked very good, but that was my way of like trying to still be myself in
Yes.
a room full of people who were extraordinarily talented and wonderful, but not like I do not want a job at a bank. I don't
Yeah.
want to be in a C-suite. Like I
Yeah.
don't these are not my these are
Yes.
people that I can understand and relate to and respect and admire, but this is not my journey. Like this is not what I wanted to do. So I
Yes.
was kind of in a period for, I want to say, 5 years. That's when I started to get into marketing,
Mm.
where I opened my own content marketing company. I started to experiment a little bit more with my voice
Hmm.
and my style. And it's funny to me because I'm like, okay, my first business was Out Loud Magazine, Live Life Louder. And my second business was called Word Up. And it was like, it was basically like, it was just
No,
like,
I'm
yeah,
laughing.
like live
Sorry,
your
I'm
voice. Like,
laughing. No, I'm laughing because it makes sense, but it's also very funny at the same
it's just
time.
like, I don't know. I thought it was like the most genius thing to do. Um, but for me, it was just like I need to be able to work by myself
Yeah.
and do what I have to do to like make this happen. But still, I was walking into these rooms where I was just not connecting with people.
Hmm.
And then I found like the rooms where I would connect with people wouldn't have like the budgets all the time to
Mm.
work with me. So it was again just this balance of being authentic and kind of conforming and people pleasing, and really just like shutting down it was, even though I was like trying to be like word up, like, oh, I'm going to take your business to the next level. Your marketing game is about to be just on point. Like
Hmm.
it, I wasn't like fully embodying that. Like it
Hmm.
just, I was still tired. And at this time, my days were still draining me. I was still keeping up that cycle of just constant motion, constant work, constant perfection, like
Yeah.
editing the tiniest things. Like,
Yep.
this word should go here, this period, maybe it should be a semicolon. Like, just really getting into the like
The
editor
weed.
mode. Like, yeah, and most of the time people didn't care about those types of things. And no matter how much work I put into it, they would come back with edits anyway because
Right.
that's the relationship. But I would wake up, drink coffee, drink water, move on to wine at some point, and just have these days that would just be endless of emailing, poring over these words and these details, and then being exhausted. And then I would go to a happy hour to meet with a potential client, or I would go to a happy hour to like connect with someone that could connect me with someone. Like, I was just still in that motion.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I was doing what I wanted to do, I was still like exhausted. There was still like some sort of like something in me of like, no, you have to be working this much. Like, you have to be pouring over every period, and you have to be doing 2 happy hours in one day. Like the thought of that now makes me feel so physically ill. Like, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Like,
I
that was
just relate
cute.
to that I relate to all of that so much. And I think it's partially because I'm a black woman. I think it's partially because in medicine I went the underdog route, the less respected route of going to a Caribbean medical school, and the patriarchal, very systematic, very rigid. Like, that room looks like an interview room, like of candidates like about to go interview for medical school or residency. It's just like, you have to show up in this way. You wear your blue suit or your black suit. I remember, speaking of like kind of trying to be out, like be yourself, but then also try to fit into the system. I remember having a conversation with a mentor of mine, and at the time my hair still is natural. I was like, should I wear my natural hair like in a puff, or should I go get it straightened? Like, just how am I supposed to be to be accepted into this system that at the end of the day, laughing at it now, thinking the same thing about you, looking back on it, it's just like, how would I ever, this system was not meant for me. It was meant
Mm-hmm.
for white men that like to look, that they like to just copy paste. There's no variation, there's no standard. I mean, there's this the standard that everybody has to follow. And then on top of that, in relation to, it's just like, I was never expected, I meaning a black woman, was never expected to
Yeah.
be sitting next to said white man in this space. I was the one that was typically experimented on, that was, seen as the patient, to seen less than, definitely not seen as the doctor that walked in the room. It was, who are you, ma'am, miss,
Yes.
or I remember. And that reminds me, I'm sorry. That reminds me of a time when I was in residency, my very first year, and I already had all these imposter syndrome things going on. I was on my ultrasound rotation, which is a chill rotation. So I was like partying and went back. Yeah, I was like doing stuff. I actually had like a chill month. And so I came in with like some surgery scrubs on with the ultrasound machine to ultrasound a patient. And there was an ICU fellow, a white guy, that came in the room, or that was already in the room, or came in afterwards. I don't remember, when I was trying to ultrasound this guy's heart. He's like, "Oh, are you ultrasound?" I'm like, MF, or no, I'm the damn emergency medicine resident. Who the hell are you? Like, and we never
Like,
got
I'm
along after that.
sorry.
He's like, well,
Well,
he was
no.
like, oh, I didn't know, because look at what you got.
He told you who he was right away. Like,
And
you
I have
knew exactly who
never,
he was.
exactly. And I have never dealt with him the same way since. Like, every time I saw him or had to communicate with him afterwards, I reminded him of that moment. And he apologized a million times, but I did not care, because it was just like, Again,
There's so many layers to that. Like, and it's like
so many layers.
he needs to be reminded because he's working with people who are not like him every single day. And he needs to learn how to speak to people and see people. And anyway, so,
Yes.
he needed to be
Yes.
reminded. Apologies are not enough.
No, it was not enough. And he eventually got his act together and he humbled himself towards me. But I'm just like, no, but I relate, and even, and I was gonna say even to RaDonna, I relate even now. Like, yes, I'm doing my own business and clearly have a podcast that we're sitting here talking on, but I'm also still in organized medicine. Yes, I practice the way I want to as an independent contractor because, like I said, girl,
Mm-hmm.
same. I do not typically like to do the boss typical schedule thing. But it is kind of strange to being the only black woman in a boardroom of a national organization for emergency medicine, which historically has been a predominantly white organization. Now our board is very diverse, but it's still that needing to like kind of fit and be the doctor role, and not be too much or not be too this or too that. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's still that kind of pull. So I totally relate to that. That's what I was just trying to say in this long
Yeah,
segment.
well, it's like we just shrink ourselves. Like
Yeah.
we just immediately go to shrink mode. Like we're just like, okay, how can I take up the least amount of space here? How can I? But it's wild because our personality is no, you will see me, no, you will hear me. Like
Right.
I will speak, but there's still something like that takes so much effort to do when our body is physically experiencing the like dissonance. Like
Yeah.
we're not like this is there's definitely separation here in a way. And
Yeah.
I think with the rooms that I was in, I would seek out women's organizations, and a lot of times, like it was very inspiring and empowering to be in the rooms. But I couldn't help but notice that we were often imitating or repeating or like doing the same things that like men were taught to do or like taught us how to do, and not receive like looking at our own gifts. And I think this is true for everyone. Like we all do this because we're
Preach.
all conditioned by the patriarchy, the white cis hetero patriarchy. Like we are all in it. So it's like I would just be sitting there like, this feels like very formal, or this feels very unnecessarily like pragmatic when you could just say the thing. You
Right.
could just like say what you're trying to say.
Right.
Or I mean, there's like a ton of examples, but it was exhausting to me. I'm like, why are we replicating something that we are actively here to dismantle? Like,
Hmm.
why are we still in this space doing these
Preach.
things that we are actively here for to like change? Like, what is
Preach.
it wasn't making sense. It wasn't connecting to me. And I just felt so out of place. And yeah, it was hard. It was hard for me to network because I was like, I love this person, but also I have so many questions. Like, and I started to just totally separate myself
Hmm.
from networking altogether. Because it was a lot. Like it was, and it typically what I would do and what I kind of tried to do, but it was so exhausting, was start my own thing. I'm like, well, of course, I'll just start my own group. I'll just start my own. Da, da, da. But I was learning to uh, edit myself at
Hmm.
some point. Like, you can't do all the things.
Yeah.
Um, but what ended up happening is when I see pictures of myself in this time, it is my clothes are cool, like I look okay, but it's my energy. It's like
Hmm.
I'm dull. Like I don't know how to explain it, but my energy just looks like flat. Like I'm like, "Oh God, where were you?" Like
Hmm.
I just receded. Like my spirit, my energy just kind of went so inward. because I was not feeling safe to express myself or really like go all out with what I wanted to do. And I'm telling you, anyone who knew me at this time would not believe this, like, would not believe a word that I'm saying, because I would show up and I would smile and I would do the dance and
Yep.
perform and go home and just be like,
Yep.
what just happened?
Yep.
Like, where am I? What is my name?
Yep.
And around this time is when tarot finds its way to me. Thank God. Like, just like, thank you. Whatever put that in my hands, like, I will never forget it. Like, because I was exhausted. I was like trying so hard to keep up with this career that at least
And this
gave me some sort of,
persona.
yeah,
Yeah.
this like, I was so into the girl boss, like hustle culture. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I will do it and I will do it my way. But actually, I'm suffering a lot on the inside. Just like, it was just, the performance was too much.
Yeah.
So I'm like, at this time, I had a couple of interns, which when I look back, I'm like, I see why I wanted to share knowledge and help people who were in journalism or communications or whatever to try to like find another way. But at the same time, I'm like, you cannot handle an intern at that time, but you know, good for you for trying. That was very ambitious of you. But this intern on a random day, like, brings in a tarot deck. Like, and so it was like after our meeting, like, all right, do you just want to hang out? Like, do you just want to do something fun? The wild thing about this is we were recording, like, we were filming this meeting for a award. So we were like, so the camera was like far away from us. We kind of forgot it existed. And we just started going in on tarot cards and like reading the book and getting out these like personology charts. And I have footage of this moment of like my face. I'm telling you, it was like a ghost lived in my body. Like, it was just like, I was not myself. My shoulders were like this, and I was just like reading the cards so it just, I felt dim, and I don't know. I'm not really a dim person. So like looking at it is like looking at someone that was like a shell. Like, I'm like, who is that person? And I'm sitting there and I'm just like getting the cards, I'm reading the book, and I'm having a profound moment. Like, the second the cards were in my hand and I was shuffling, my hands started to tingle. Like, I was just like, I mean, like, my hands are kind of shaking, like, thinking about it. I was just like,
Wow.
oh. And I read the instructions, how to read the cards, and I was very intentional about following those instructions.
That perfectionism.
Yes, I was like,
Let me
okay,
do it right. Let me do it exactly the way I'm
I was like,
supposed to. Yep.
and you know, I knew what I saw on TV about like messing with things. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna mess this thing up. Like, I'm not messing it up. But the cards that came out, like, I understood them immediately. Like, immediately, innately, it just like, it like woke something up inside my whole body. And it was like a past, present, future, but like a past life deck. So it was like, you know, in your past life, you experienced, and I don't know if I believe in past lives. I don't know what I believe in terms of that, but the message made sense. It was like you experienced like wrongful persecution, and you have a problem now with authority figures, and you kind of struggle with moving forward because you have such a problem with the way things are.
Yep.
I was just like,
wow.
Interesting you would say that. You know, and that was my feeling, that I'm reading them and I'm like, okay, no, this is exactly me. This is what I'm going through. This like read me. And I just had, I don't know, I felt like I don't know, maybe I went into like a a mode where my aura just like blew up out of me or something. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if like a Sailor Moon moment, like just my
Yeah.
superpower came on and I was like, okay, I'm different. Like something is different. Um, and I was still in that time struggling because across the table from me was my ex, who was an alcoholic, who was supposed to
Hmm.
be working, but literally came home drunk and interrupted this meeting that I was having with my
Your
intern.
intern. Yeah.
It was so inappropriate and like, but like this is on camera. Like I'm having this profound like moment and he's on the other side like I know what this means for you. I know this means this for you. So as I'm having this internal profound like moment of
Awakening.
like listening to myself
Yeah.
and really like, whoa, I know things. Like I know things. And externally, someone was actively trying to tell me what it meant for me. Like it
Yeah.
was such an odd moment, but it woke me up. And
Hmm.
it took me a really long time to kind of to well, A, get out of that relationship,
Hmm.
and B, figure out like what tarot was going to be in my life. But I like 100% knew that I was going to explore tarot and try to understand like why, like what that feeling was
Hmm.
and how to use that energy to like make more choices that felt better. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know exactly what that was, but I was like, have I have to follow this. And I'm pretty sure within 2 years, so my content marketing business was still growing,
Hmm.
but I was learning this new thing. Um, by the time the content marketing business was like really getting to a point where it was sustainable, I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw all of my business cards in a bonfire and I'm gonna do something else. Like I was just like, nope, I cannot put on the charade anymore. Like I'm not puppeting anymore. Like I have to be done with this. Um, so I mean, it took a while to
Hmm.
like really understand that. Like, I literally moved back in with my parents. As you can probably guess, the relationship with that person was very chaotic and off and on for a long time. And that drained a lot of my energy while I was trying to figure out who I
Hmm.
was and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it was just something that, like, it's just one of those feelings that like people I think put in movies, like where
Yeah.
it's like love at first sight, or like there's just this like oh aha moment. Like I had that. Like and
Yeah.
there's nothing that has made me feel that way like ever. So what I
Hmm.
think, if I could relay something, it's like when you have a knowing or an instinct or an excitement or like something wakes you up when you have been feeling like very dormant for a long time, you pay attention.
Yeah.
You don't have to know exactly what it means. Like, I didn't change my life that day, but it's just like, okay, I have to follow this and trust that I'm gonna figure it out. Like, and that is all that I did. Um, so
I
I,
have to pause you right
sure.
there. I'm sorry. That's so hmm. That's so powerful because I think one, I relate to that, of course, too. But the way you even described it as a Sailor Moon moment, if anyone has ever seen an episode of Sailor Moon, and I remember when I started watching Sailor Moon, I guess it was still on the Cartoon Network. Yeah, it was on the Cartoon Network, and I was just obsessed. But I can literally, I remember, I forgot if it was from her heart or from her belt or something, but it's just like there would just be these
Mm-hmm.
beams just like that, where she would just burst out and just it felt like something was finally being unleashed inside of her. And I think it was her power. I can't, said, I'm
Yeah,
not an anime girl. I'm not
she
a
would call it moon prism power, and it would
thank you.
activate from her heart, especially if she was feeling like emotionally charged. She could just say moon prism power, and it
And
would
then
just
just
expand, and like she would float and turn into like Sailor Moon.
mm-hmm.
Yes, that is exactly what that it like felt like that inside of my bones. Like I was just like, oh, like we're different. We have
Right.
evolved. Like
But
it's
so
kind
many
of like
people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no, I was just gonna say it's just like when you take off the mask, like you and you see things, like you can't put it back on. Like it doesn't fit your face anymore. Like
You
it's
can't
just like
unsee it. Yeah.
you can't unsee what you've seen. Yeah. So what were
It's
you gonna say?
no, I was just gonna say there's so many people I think that, especially in medicine, that have had maybe not that dramatic of a moment. Like we're not asking everybody to activate moon prism power or anything like that. But you've had something to happen, and it's just like an awakening of some sort of, like you say, I this is me, or I don't belong here, or this is magical, or something else, and they don't go chase that. And they don't trust that. They don't trust that it is the moment that they need it for whatever reason, because I'm not sure what that moment is actually meant for. I think different people have these moments for different reasons, but that can be, and there's no structure, there's no plan,
That's
there's
the hard
no
part.
there's no like synchronicity to that. um as you were describing it, though, it also made me remember my Christian upbringing, and not just any Christian upbringing, but um apostolic Pentecostal, which is a very strict but also very deeply spiritual, like, denomination, and we believe in manifestations of the Holy Spirit to be,
Mm.
can be like that. Like it can be, you might hear someone just like speaking in tongues all of a sudden, or all of a sudden you just may take off running around the church, and people are like, what is going on? But you don't know how the Spirit is going to move. You don't know what is going to happen. But like I said, some people just take those moments as just moments and then bypass them,
Hmm.
and not actually take heed to that, and and take it as a big sign or a big clue that there's something else that needs to happen there. So
Well, it's because we're conditioned to well, first, it's grind culture. Like if it doesn't make sense to the hustle, then it doesn't make sense. Like if it doesn't make sense to my job, then it doesn't make sense. But also in medicine and a lot of similar industries, like it's actually really just all over. We are conditioned to believe in numbers, measurable facts, data,
yeah,
and we are not taught to really like listen to the sensations that are happening in our body. Like we discount them. They're happening all the time. They happen every day. And for some people this feeling might actually happen every day some way, but they discount it because they're like, "Oh, I just got excited for a second." Or like, "Oh, yeah, that happens." Like, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to ignore it." Like it's happening constantly. It's just we're taught to have like evidence and facts, and
right.
where there's absolutely a time and place for evidence and facts. There's also room for the feelings
Yeah,
and the emotion and energy and like things that are still kind of a mystery to us.
yeah,
And I think allowing room for the mystery and being curious is really where the work and the play kind of starts. Like
mm-hmm.
if you just like are curious about it, like, well, what is this? What is like okay. So if this happened, then what is like
What does that
what's the
mean?
next step?
Yeah,
Like what do I want to learn about that? And for me, I mean, I couldn't ignore or run away from this happening. Like, I
mm-hmm.
literally that night had a dream where I was like, I think, well, they call it like astral projecting, but I
Yes.
don't know that it was a dream. So I'm just like, I don't know what it was. Like, but I was like floating in this woman's kitchen and I thought she couldn't see me. I was wearing like a Harry Potter invisible cloak and I was just like watching her stir with like a wooden pot. I'm like, whoa, she's like this is like an actual crone. Like this is a witch
Hmm.
in her little hermit era and she's just doing her thing. And suddenly the woman stops stirring and she just like looks up at me and without saying any words, I heard her say, I thought you would never come. And I
Hmm.
was just and I like shot back like into my dreaming, like active self, you know, and I woke up just like, whoa, like what just happened? It was the most profound dream. I mean, I've had some like pretty intense dreams before, but this one, like, it made me unable to go back. Like, I
Hmm.
physically, mentally, energetically was like something. I don't know how you want to explain dreams, but something inside of me was like, I've been waiting for you to like listen. Like,
Hmm.
and later on, I read stories about the Baba Yaga.
Hmm.
Um, and so this is a book, The Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Okay.
It's a,
I've
it's
heard
a,
of that book.
it
Yeah.
is a classic. I've been reading it for like 10, like since this period of my life. And I am still like pouring over like I'm like in it. It's so good. But basically, the author describes the Baba Yaga coming and visiting you in your dreams and kind of like leaving footprints. So you wake up. So you tune into yourself and you are like, hey, you're in a place where you're really like, you're destroying yourself and you need to wake up. So like that's a dream that I had before I read these books, before I knew anything about tarot, before I knew anything about spirituality or intuition or psychic energy or I was totally new to all of it and that's the dream that I had. And then when I look back I'm like, "Oh, I was being like awoken. Like there was no way I could return." Like it changed my world. And I feel like that's another thing that we just like, we don't leave room for
Hmm.
is like listening even to our dreams, to the visions that we get. Like, you know, you could be doing dishes and having like a download about something. But because you have these downloads and these ideas and your imagination wanders all of the time, you're like, that's nothing. That's just,
Yep.
I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yep.
But we have this innate sense of spiritual direction and we just suppress it or reject it or put it away. For me, I think I like after that dream I just had to figure it out. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I'm curious. And it led me to like find my first deck. Like I just randomly went into a store, was drawn to a deck and bought it.
Hmm.
It led me to telling a friend about the dream that I had and she was like, "Well, interesting. I just joined this women's circle
Hmm.
that is for people who are studying to be like mediums and psychics." And I was like, "The what? What is this?" Like
What?
it was just like people do this.
Yeah.
Like people just hang out and like talk about these things. Okay, so I ended up studying with a mentor for 2 years, just on my own time, like just for fun,
Hmm.
um, and developed what I know now is like ethics, a practice, a rooted, grounded system of beliefs that I have.
Hmm.
And also in that time, I found so many things in my life falling away,
Yeah.
like friendships, um, things that I used to like the networking thing was just like, no, I would rather sit at home and like read my tarot cards.
Yeah.
It's a full moon. I would rather be doing my ritual. I would rather be doing my full moon cleansing bath than going out and doing all of these things.
Right.
So it was like it just became a hobby, like a self care practice that really helped me heal and start working on some things like perfectionism, like the overachieving, like the codependencies, the, um, I had a lot of like anger issues because I think all women inside have a lot of anger issues
Yeah.
that are unresolved. So I started like working through these things with the cards and
Hmm.
asking for direction and asking for help. If I didn't know how to communicate something, I would ask the cards. If I was struggling with like what I should do, like should I stay with this client that is draining me dry or should I move on? Like I would listen to what the cards said. And that's the part that I think you and I can connect with
Yeah.
because once you start listening to the cards and co-creating with them, things get harder first.
Yeah.
Like they get challenging because you have to firmly stand in just a belief. You have to firmly be grounded in like I know this thing to be true for myself and I'm going to trust that I have read these cards with the best intentions, with the greatest good, with harm to none in mind, and that these cards have shown me something that can be very helpful. So when you start really grounding into it and making
Hmm.
decisions from that place, it causes a lot of changes. Like
Yeah.
you naturally are just drawn to different things. And that's why, like for me, like I ended up throwing all of my business cards in a
Hmm.
bonfire, and like how I ended up moving back in with my parents, and like like every decision that I made on the outside looked like I was doing less
Amazing. Oh,
well
that's
no,
what.
like
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
outside it was like because I'm moving back with my parents, I'm not hanging out as much, I'm really kind of like withdrawing in a way.
Yeah.
But like that's the time where on the inside I was doing amazing, like I was feeling more like myself. I'm like, okay, I'm learning how to like talk to people authentically and like be direct or make choices that I know are for my greatest good. Like that's the part that gets complicated because
Hmm.
on the outside it looks like things aren't going right,
Yeah.
but it's like hold out. Like you just gotta hold out and
Yeah.
trust yourself. Like that is like the hardest part of all of this. Is
That
trusting it.
that's so good. And I'm so glad that you said, the moment that you make a decision, it's actually going to be harder than you expect, because I can think of so many major transitions of my life that I made a decision, I'm going somewhere, and then like a catastrophe happens. And you think that it's a sign from God that you're not supposed to be doing it, or you think that you made the wrong decision, and you think about all of these things, but it's just like, it's so interesting that as soon as you make a decision for truly yourself and to make a move for yourself, like you did, like, nope, I'm going to trust these cards. Nope. Um, the way I have been living has gotten me here. I'm appreciative of that, but what's gotten me here is not going to get me there. That decision is going to be tested and tried so hard, and it's funny, haha, funny, interesting that this is coming up, because I feel like in the clients that I work with, of course, physicians, doctors, who are transitioning into entrepreneurship, I've had some clients lately kind of stop before they even get started, because all of a sudden they change their mind, or life or something happens, and then I'm just like, that means that you're doing it right. Like, you're finally doing something for yourself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't take the hardship as you're doing something wrong. Take it as a sign that you're doing something right. And sometimes that's hard to say, especially when, I mean, at the end of the day, who's really complaining about a doctor's salary? Maybe only the pediatricians. Maybe only them. No, seriously. And this is medical talk
Okay.
now. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's just like, but if you decide that you want something more, that you want to start your own business, or you want to step outside the box
Yes.
of what you've been put in, or you've put yourself in for so long, it's it's challenging, and you really have to hold on to, like you said, you have to just stand on belief. That's really the only thing you got is belief. And the
Yes.
Bible says you only need to say the faith the size of a mustard seed. Everybody has seen a little mustard seed, and it's barely
Mm-hmm.
what I'm making with my hand is bigger than a mustard seed. But that's sometimes the only thing you have to literally stand on. Think about
Mm-hmm.
standing on that and having that to hold you through those times. So I'm reflecting on what you're saying, but I also so identify with it on so many different times in my life. The first thing I thought about was when I went to medical school and my flight got canceled and I got stranded in Trinidad, and no phone, couldn't call my mother, couldn't no money. I'm
Oh
like,
my
what the hell?
gosh.
And I'm just like, I have been waiting all of this time to get to medical school, and I'm like literally so bad that I've flown myself to another country that I've never been to before. And now this happens. Maybe this is the sign that I need to go back. Maybe I should just go take everything was cool at home. But no, it's just like I'm so glad that you just have to persist and just be like, no, this is happening for a reason. This means that I meant for this to happen, like to keep going. And I just don't want people to let that derail them, because like I said, I see it so much now in entrepreneurship. It's like, because we've not been taught that there's this emotional component to business, that we just let sometimes the biggest thing or the smallest things derail us, instead of making us even more determined and really challenging our own, like you're saying, self-belief and
Mm-hmm.
self-determination and self-efficacy as well too.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
so so
And
I don't even know. This is a coaching conversation. This is
I
our
love it. I
podcast. This
love
is
it.
so good. I'm getting coached.
Well, for me, like, knowing, some things about your journey and also the people who listen to your podcasts. I mean, you're taught to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
You are taught to just grind, 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 grind. So it's also just kind of like, well, how on earth will I have the energy to pursue something else? Like,
Yeah.
how can I possibly even manage these things at once? And I think because that feels so hard to resolve, we just like, I imagine a lot of people don't even start because
Yeah.
it just feels like too big of a problem. So I would recommend in that space, that's where that curiosity is key, because you don't have to make something of the thing that brings you joy right now, like, or maybe ever, maybe one day it will become your side hustle. Maybe one day it will become like, yeah, you'll sell a piece of art for $10,000 because you just followed your little painting hobby for a second. Like, you just never know what could happen, but I can guarantee that you will start feeling better about your grinding, about your days, if you create sacred space and set boundaries around the thing that kind of brings you joy, the thing that
Yeah.
you're curious about, the thing that you're
Yeah.
excited about. Like, can guarantee it. Like, I've worked with clients for 8 years in this capacity, and there is a night and day difference
Yes.
of how people start to show up when they take time to work on themselves in
Yeah.
a joyful, like, it's not like exciting, like we're popping champagne bottles exciting. It's more like exciting, like your heart just kind of goes like, like you're just like, I baked cookies today. Like,
Yes.
like it feels so, it's a different feeling. It's just like,
Yes.
I just, for no reason, decided that I'm going to, from scratch, like bake something. Okay. Like, it's just continuing that will have like a massive ripple effect. And eventually that problem of like this, that, how do I integrate? How do I make time for everything? It gets more figure outable as you go. Like
Exactly.
the things become clear. And like it's not something where you have to like get rid of all of your history and your background and your knowledge and your expertise and become something else. What you're really trying to do, and what tarot has helped me with and many of my clients with, is integration.
Yeah.
Like, how can we be all the parts of ourselves?
Hmm.
How can I show up in a room and not give a F about,
Because
like, okay, I was like, I don't know
you
what
can
the
cuss on this.
podcast rating is. I was like, Angel, I was like, but like, and like, you show up and you don't care what they
Yeah.
say or what they like. That's a them problem. Like,
Yeah.
you still show up as you. Period. Like, I just actually, it was 2 years ago, started to go back into the networking. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough time. I can show up as myself now. I'm going to do this. And I showed up looking like me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I was probably wearing like a beret with sequins or sparkles or something. And I had a leopard print, like flowy silk skirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just felt like I came ready. I was like, I'm showing up. This is who
Mm-hmm.
I am. And I swear, some woman really like asked me if I like to shop at thrift stores. And like, she was like, do you shop in the thrift store? And I'm like, I think she meant it well. But for me, I was like, well, I obviously look different than every person in this room. Like, because it's 8 in the morning and I'm wearing a sequin
Right.
sparkly beret. And I'm like, hi, hello. And I'm like, okay. So to me, it was just like, because I'm so grounded in myself, it
Mm-hmm.
was a moment where I could be like, you know what? This room isn't for me, but it's not because of me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really have interest or anything to prove to people who don't get it, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, because
Yeah.
there are plenty of people who do,
Yeah.
and all we need is like one introduction, like, honestly.
Yeah.
So for me now, I'm like, I'm, I'm at a place where some days there's still a mustard seed conviction. Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
like this teeny tiny thing. Like, I'm in a period like that right now. Like, it's just like, I've got to like really believe in it, like
Same.
right now. Like,
Yeah.
it is that moment. It's a make or break, but I know I have this, and I know like I've made such intentional choices to get me here, and I have
Yeah.
seen the positive results. Like, it's just like, I feel like the dam's about to break. And
Hmm.
if I give up now, I'll never know. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never know.
Yeah.
Like,
I know you're not a Christian girl, but you have preached. You have preached. Like, you are preaching. She does not have a place to give offerings, and she does not take tithes, you guys, but
I'm
but no,
pass
that's
the basket around.
exactly like, amen, sister. No, because that's so good. And I also too, before we got on this call, um I was talking to my assistant, and there's a lot of things changing, and we've already had our conversation for the year ahead, so that there's a lot more new titles that I'm about to take on this year, mom being one of them. Who gave me a baby? The universe did. This child decided
Universal, like,
to.
here you go.
Here you are. But the same thing is that there's so many different things that right now it's just like ideas are pivoting, business model is there's a lot of pivots. So I feel the same way. It's just like I have to stand on that, like, just having just even that little bit of conviction. The whole scripture says if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And so that's the full scripture.
Okay.
And
Like,
right, which gives me even more chills to even say that, because there is the darkness, there is the uncertainty, the not being sure of which way it goes, but you just feel so led and so moved
Mm-hmm.
and so driven to continue because you just something inside of you, even if it's like you said, this small, is saying keep going. And if you stop, you'll never know. You'll never know. And that's my biggest
Yep.
thing that I think that drives me as a person. Is something also that my mom told me growing up. It's just like, just do what you want to do because the time is going to pass regardless. So you might as well spend the time doing the stuff that you want to do. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, if it takes a long time, it takes a long time. It doesn't matter because if it's meant for you to have, that's what's meant to happen for you. So I'm like I said, this is a this is allegedly a podcast episode. This is more of like I needed this today. Like this is
Oh my gosh.
there's so much uncertainty, but you have to stand on, like you said, maybe it is that Sailor Moon, Moon Prison Power moment, or maybe it's
Activated.
just activated, or maybe it's just saying you just feel something, just something, a still small voice that you hear to just
Mm-hmm.
tell you, go do that, or do this, or don't do that, or whatever it is, just to continue to listen. And more specifically, I believe that women have this power a lot more than everybody has intuition, but at the same time, I think women are more intuitive and more in tune
Mm-hmm.
with that. And a lot of my clients are women, even though I do service men or work with men as well too. But just that's so good. So I guess that leads me to, so everyone has been, we've been talking about how tarot has truly changed your life and how you have found it. And maybe someone who's listening is curious. Maybe they have had a tarot reading before. Maybe they are feeling something that, I don't know, is resonating with them from our conversation. How would you advise someone that's brand new to tarot, like, of course, if they couldn't work with you right now or what have you, what's maybe something they could do very easily with tarot to help them to along their journey, I guess, to put it as broadly as possible?
Well, there are two things. The first is maybe you have a tarot deck, maybe you don't. If you do not have a tarot deck, find a book like the Bible, like a chicken soup for the soul type of book. I have daily readers for like Al Anon. Like that's like these are things that you can just pick up, flip to a
Mm-hmm.
page, because the practice will be the same. So if you have a tarot deck, use that. If not, a book will that you really resonate and is maybe it's something that means something to you. Like you want to make sure it means something to you. It cannot just be a random book. But you need to have something that has like a lot of pages, a lot of cards, something to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm going to teach you something that I usually only teach in my classes. So
Come on,
you get
exclusive.
a little thing. I have a 4-step method to reading tarot cards. And this is not something that you will read in a book about tarot. It's not something you will find online because there's a lot of things I did learn from books, but how to tap into my intuition in a way that made sense to me was not one of them. Like I had to figure that out in mentorships or in like my own practice of just playing. So the way that I read tarot is a little different than what you might see on the internet. And the first step is feelings. So when you flip to a page in the book, random page, you're just like, I am feeling like I'm going to stop on this page today. Or you pull one card out. We're not going to use that one. We're going to use a pretty one. Like, you know, we're going to use an abundance one because this one is about money. So let's say you pull this card out. What you're going to do first is trust how you feel. You're going to trust what this card makes you feel.
Hmm.
And it's not like that's the hardest part, is getting in touch with yourself when you're trying to trust your intuition, when you're trying to make these judgments. Like, you are not, it's not up here. Like, it's not something you problem solve. It's like a reading is something that can only be felt. So I would look at this card and be like, okay, well, do I feel at ease? Do I feel happy? Do I feel overwhelmed? Do I feel like, I don't know, the equivalent of like the cha-ching sound, the cash register sound? Like, what is coming to me right now? And like, what sensations are happening when I just look at it? Like, how am I experiencing this card? You might have to get past initial anxiety. Like, if you feel anxious, try to go deeper, like go a little bit deeper. The second thing, so you trust your feelings first.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that you would do is trust your observation. Like, visually, what can I see? So here, I could see this is the number 10. I could see that they are coins, pentacles. You don't have to know a lot about tarot to like just look at the card and say what you see. You can see that maybe there's these dogs, there's a person who has like a very ornate robe. It kind of looks like a conversation is happening, and maybe they're outside. It kind of looks like this is like a conversation that's taking place like in a street where people know each other. So I would just start paying attention to like what you notice first, because that's usually where the message is. So you're like, okay, this is what I feel about the card. Now I'm just going to observe it and trust, like, the first thing that I am drawn to right now is what's happening behind these coins. And for me, it's the communal aspect. There's this community energy, there's an exchange happening. The next step would be, well, what do I know about this card? And this one could be tricky, but this is more like your book, like book knowledge. Like, it's more like, I've read about this, or like, I know that the number 10s mean this to me, or I know that coins are money. So like, it's when you start pulling in your external knowledge, like that's when things are, like, that's the third step though. So what we tend to do is we pull the card, we open the book, and we're like, I need to know exactly what this means right now. So we're likely to, like, if you have a guidebook, you would open it up and be like, tell me what this means. But instead, this is kind of giving you like a space to know what it is for yourself first. Like, what is my judgment of this? What is my feeling about this? And then call in outer knowledge. That's where the real magic is when you learn to put your own interpretation first and then call in the intellectual, factual, evidential side of it. And the last step is to kind of put all that information together. And this happens, it sounds like it's a lot of time, and it can be depending on how much time you have, but really this is like a 60-second process. Like, it's happening very quickly. You get your feeling pretty quickly. You can notice things pretty quickly. The longest part truly is looking for outside references and resources. That's honestly the thing that takes the longest, which should tell you a lot about like our reliance on those things, of what that does to our own journey. So the last thing you do is you pull in all of that information, and you're like, how can this help me today? Like, what does this mean for me today in this moment? Like, right now, with what I'm wearing, with the place that I'm sitting, the people that I'm with, what does this mean? So that's when you kind of apply it to the bigger picture. So you kind of go through this process of like inner, outer, like, and then the integration piece of like, okay, how does this connect?
Yeah.
So that's what I would do if you're getting started in reading cards. Like, I would ditch the books entirely. Personally, that's what I teach everyone, is to like put the book down. It has a lot of help and wisdom,
Right.
but it also is like if you're trying to use the cards to trust your own intuition, you want to check in here first. You want to feel like start getting practice feeling your feelings and
Mm-hmm.
feeling sensations in your body. And then maybe ask for, like, not ask for, but seek guidance from the book or like the guidebook or any, like, I would not get on the internet and look for tarot readings. They're often not nice.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that's just like a danger zone to me. But like that should come after your own interpretations. It should really reinforce what you're thinking about the card, not change what you're thinking.
Mm. That's really, really good. Now, y'all, I've never I don't believe she's ever taught me that. That's so powerful. But I think it's so often, like you said, in medicine, we're taught to go with the facts first. Like, well, what does the lab say? Or what does the CT scan show? What did the X-ray show? What is this? What is that? It's like you telling me that this person that is coming in here clutching their chest, throwing up, pouring in sweat with every medical problem known to mankind, that person is having a heart attack, and I feel it in my, I know that in my heart. Yes, I've had the knowledge to do that, but yes, then you start to follow your gestalt. We call it clinical gestalt. Excuse me. We call it clinical gestalt, and then we go back it up with facts. With let's get the blood work, let's get the EKG, let's get the chest X-ray, let's call the person, and but then after all of that, then like you said, let's integrate it. So in a way that makes sense, but in medicine, we are taught to just go, well, it's not a STEMI or it's not a heart attack unless it's this millimeter of elevation on the EKG. Baby, if the patient look like shit, the patient look like shit. Somebody come get this man or this person out of here because something's happening and I don't know what it is. And or we may continue to gather information, but I love the fact that you said check in with yourself first. How do you feel? What are you seeing? What are you interpreting? And then go and investigate that. I think also, which is helpful, and I'm saying this for the, of course, the doctors listening. Remember that this is not life or death.
I was gonna say,
So
I'm like, that's the great thing about tarot is that like
no one's
no
having a
one's
heart
gonna
attack.
die.
Yeah, no
Like,
one's gonna die in front of you, so it's
yeah,
okay.
it's like, mm-hmm.
And it's okay to be wrong. Okay, like it's not. It's a
That
learning
part.
process. It's like, okay, I have done something similar where I picked up a card, and as you were walking through, I'm just like, yeah, that looks like money raining everywhere.
I
And then
know
when
it's
you,
just like energy to me. I'm like, oh, it's like the sparkle emoji is around all these people. Like they're just
yes,
like, oh, like energy is just
it
like
looks
they could
like
just pick it up and
energy.
grab it.
Right, it looks like money that's showering everywhere. And then you said, what does this have to do integrating it with me right now? I'm like, well, it has to be money. I'm wearing green. This woman has got like these flowers. She's looking abundant, or like it's just resting on
Mm-hmm.
her head, and she's looking so blissful and so peaceful. And the gold that's even here reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of the gold that I'm seeing, or the yellow. And I'm like, yeah, that's money. That just all of that just screamed money to me. And so, but listening to the process, like I said, it's just, I love that you said like start with what you feel first. I was just like, ooh, I feel good looking at that. It was raining money, not raining men, raining money
Exactly. Like,
in the card.
and
So
that's
so
like,
good.
and I would put money on you going into a guidebook and it's saying that. Like it would reinforce that message.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but I think you would get some, like the guidebook would just support your knowledge, like what you know. And that's where it becomes this point of like autonomy and choice. It's like my interpretation is my interpretation.
Hmm.
Like I like to describe it like reading tarot as like you are observing artwork. You are the person receiving it, and that is what makes a reading good. the individual, not the finite, like this is exactly what this card means and it can only mean this ever.
Yeah.
That is not how we go into a museum and look at art. Like
No.
it changes depending on who's viewing it and their life experiences. So for me, oh shoot, now I'm gonna forget the art, the artwork. But there's this piece of art that is like a painting with, it's like a bakery counter with a bunch of cakes,
Mm-hmm.
and in like in the painting, I mean, like it's literally like sunset or maybe sunrise, who knows? But all these cakes have different heights. Some of them are covered, some of them have a piece taken out of them. And tarot is kind of like looking at that piece of art and being like, wow, I do wonder what time of day. This makes me feel peaceful. This makes me feel overwhelmed because, like, maybe I need to, it makes me feel like I need to go get the piece of cake. Like, I need to get it before anyone else does. You know, it's like, oh,
Yes.
okay. Like, there's just so much that you could interpret when you're looking at art. It is not like baking cakes, which is perfection. You're
Yeah.
not Martha Stewart. You're not making like a 7 layer ombre cake that requires a lot of attention to detail. What you're doing is interpreting art. You're looking at the painting and you're like, how do I feel when I see this? You're not following this like rigid playbook of like exactly how to do it so it is this perfect thing every time and it will look exactly the same every time. Tarot is just so expansive when you look at it this way. Like it can show you some things that I find that therapy took me a long time to get to. Like I'm like, oh, this I could have like if I knew this a while back, like um
Yes.
but also still go to therapy, like
Right.
definitely have both. But like I it like it just gets it cuts through the noise just so
Yeah.
much quicker. So if you are like, I need to make more money, or like I'm really struggling with how to balance my time or manage my energy, like a tarot deck helps with those things. It helps to show what is possible for you.
Yeah.
And I think the reputation that it gets is that it is actually narrow. Like what comes up is so finite and strict because we've seen all the movies that show like the very intense cards
Yeah.
and their predictions for the future, like this very specific outcome. And tarot, in the way that I've seen it, the way I've practiced with it, is not that. It
Yeah.
opens up possibilities that you can choose to take. Like there might be some things that you have access to that are true no matter which path you take, but it gives you the options. It reminds you that you have choices. Like, and that maybe what would like if a sword came up, I'd be like, okay, this requires my intellect. This decision requires me to just be straight and forward and direct. If a cups card comes up, it's like, oh, this is an emotional decision. I really need to trust like my
Feelings. Yeah.
feelings about it. So it like shows you not just like what steps to take or you could take, but it shows you how to do it. It's unreal, like what a tool it is. I mean, there's a reason why like world leaders, I mean, up until now, but like world leaders use astrology,
Yes.
have like spiritual practitioners. There are people who do consult like voodoo priestesses to like
Yes.
do work. Like
Yes.
like this is something that has been used forever and
Yes.
there's a reason for it. But it's it's kind of up to the person receiving the message to figure out what they want to do with it. Like
Yeah.
that is where it's like, I can give you all of this and you can be like, no, I'd rather not.
Right.
Just like move in that, like, and that's a choice. That's what's so beautiful about it is like you do have choice. Like it's like it's not telling you that you're going to end up exactly right here, but it might tell you what it feels like. where
Yeah.
you end up. It might tell you like how to heal and cope in the times where it feels distant and far away, like what you're
Yeah.
trying to get to. But it's not going to say this exact thing is going to happen. And I guarantee you, if that's how we all read tarot, like it would, like, no one actually wants or needs to know that. Like, it's
Yeah.
not helpful. It's just like, so this thing's going to happen to me. Okay, let's say someone was like, I'm going to earn my six figures this year. Like the cards, someone was like, this date, this time, this is how it's going to happen. I would wonder if I received that information, how I would approach it. Like, does
Yeah.
that mean I'm hustling for it? Like, am I like running around door knocking to get this six figures? Or does it mean like I'm going to randomly scratch off a lottery ticket and it's going to, like, I'm going to get that money? Like, I
Mm.
would have so many more questions about what to do. Like, am I just going to sit and
Right.
wait or am I going for it? So to me, it's like you can use tarot and things like that to ask really meaningful questions about how to get somewhere, about how to identify even like what's my goal? Like, how do I want to feel? And then you can kind of like create a path with these things in mind that feels more energetically aligned, that feels more on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a finite, like, date, time, location. Like, I'm sure there are people in the world who can do that. I believe that there are truly, but
Yeah.
they are like one in a million, like
Yeah.
truly, like who can actively do that and do it in a way that makes you feel still like you have power in your life.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a very rare gift and not one that I think is necessary for everyday people. Like, I just
Yeah.
don't think that's helpful. So
And
possibilities.
and I was gonna say, even from my experience in with you and with tarot, as limited as it is, but still my experience with it, I feel like it's so much more comforting to not necessarily always know the what, because just thinking about the reading from last year and how the year ended up, it's just like I can't even fathom that. And so now that we've moved past the end of last year into 2025, it's just like, well, yeah, that makes actually sense because you're someone completely new, completely different. It gives me more of an expectation to understand the energy that's possibly going to be there, or how I need to move, or things that I maybe need to be
Mm-hmm.
perceptive of, rather than, like you said, okay, am I going to make six figures in this business this year? Yes or no? Okay, this is how it's going to come, this date at this time, this
Yep.
deposit. No, that we ask for that, but honestly, at the end of the day, that that personally does not give me a whole lot of peace, because I'm, like you said, I'm gonna have a lot more questions. Am I hustling for
We're
this?
overthinkers here.
We're all
We're like, wait, so I have no comfort in this because I need to know like how.
how
like
the how.
um like that actually overwhelms me. Like, I need to know then what I should be doing to call that in. Do I just sit and do money rituals all day? That's
Yeah.
like, that would be good to know if that's what I could do for it to come in. Or am I going outside? Am I meeting people? Will it rely on me being at the right place at the
Yeah.
right time to meet the right person
Yeah.
for that to happen? So it's like we all think we want to know the future, which in my experience, that is that's actually not that common, but that's what we associate tarot with, is predicting the future. But
Mm-hmm.
most people are like, when they're afraid of readings, it's because they don't want to know the future. They would rather know like other things. And I'm like, no, but really, that's right. Like, come. But like, that's just me trying to like over explain it. And I'm like, I'm not chasing that anymore.
Yeah.
But like, it's more like, uh, instead of this exact outcome, it's like, I can tell you that this is how it's going to feel. And maybe if this is something that excites you, like if that's a feeling that you're like, yeah, I'm into that, I want that, here's the information that I'm getting from all of these cards and from like what your, what your energy's telling me, these are the moves and the things I would keep in mind to get that. But I will like literally never tell someone exactly what to do. Like
Yeah.
ever, 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 ever. Because it's just the whole point is to expand,
Yeah.
not to limit.
Hmm.
So I help people focus on their feelings, paying attention, checking in, like, okay, I know this month is going to be super fast and really busy because I got the Knight of Wands. So I need to be doing things that keep me balanced, keep me grounded, keep me focused. Like that's more of what tarot, I think, that's more of what I think tarot has to offer than just this like finite, concrete date, time,
Yeah.
location thing.
Yeah. And it honestly, like you said, it's very limiting instead of expansive. Instead of you just come to it for a specific thing, like, no. Even if you're a Christian, God doesn't want you just to talk to him or her, or whoever you believe in, just when
Mm-hmm.
you want something. Like it's supposed to be an open dialogue, an open conversation, an open relationship,
Mm-hmm.
where yes, there's ups and downs, but at the same time, it's supposed to be, the Bible talks about, um, in Psalms, like, the Lord is my shepherd. He walks with me beside the still waters. He comforts my soul. Like all of those things. It's supposed to be a relationship. So even if, like I said, you are a Christian, it's the same type of relationship. It sounds like what you're describing with the tarot cards. It's not supposed to be just to tell you what to do, what's right,
Mm-mm.
what's wrong, yes or no, up, down, left, right. Sometimes it will tell you that, but sometimes it's just like it's a guidance. It's a
Mm-hmm.
support. It's a leading. It's a mentorship that is really, what the power of the cards are for, and that's really what I found. Like I said, in the times that we worked together, and I can't believe it's been like 2 years now. That's insane.
I know.
But it's just like, yeah, it's more of a guidance and not necessarily the rigidness that we are conditioned to expect and to want. So I love that.
Beautiful.
Um, we have been chatting, girl. But I say you preached, and we didn't talk about the Bible. We didn't talk about tarot. We talked about everything. I'm wondering if you could pull a card for the audience of listeners
Ooh,
of
I love
whoever's
this.
listening to this podcast, and in whatever continuum of time. So many of my listeners listen like the day it gets downloaded, but people go back and listen and rewatch. So I'm, as I hear you shuffling the cards, I am asking the cards to give whoever is listening to this interview a message through what you're picking, no matter if this is 10 years from now or the day it got downloaded. I hope that it speaks
Ooh,
to you where you are, where, like I said, in the continuum of time.
all right. Oh, I love this. Of course, this would come up for the Docs Get Money podcast. Okay. So, we have received what is called the Queen of Swords. It might be showing up backwards visually. If you're listening, the Queen of Swords is a person sitting on a very large throne from a side angle. You kind of see their profile. In one hand on the throne, they're holding a sword that goes straight up and down. And on the other hand, that's on the other side of the chair, the far side, is an arm with a palm extending upward and outward, almost in kind of like, I mean, you can interpret this gesture in a lot of ways, but the palm is open and upward. So for me, um, I have to tell you one of my things about the swords that I don't think is a common conception, but like it makes sense for this purpose and this reading and this audience, so I'm going to share it. I see the swords as health and medical,
Hmm.
because when I think of a sword, like a lot of people often think of like conflict, fighting, like what you use a sword for. But I just think of like how a knife or a scalpel or a
Mm-hmm.
needle is a healing tool. How we
Hmm.
use it to see what needs fixed, how we open things up and get in there. Like, you have to kind of cut things open in order to fix them. So for me, the Queen of Swords is, I think, came to be like, hi, I'm here. Hello, medical professionals. You want to do something different? Let's go. Because the queen is wise, the queen is an expert, the queen also builds community. So when we think about the Queen of Swords, like, okay, how can I build a community with my tools? How can I use my tools to create an environment that feels really powerful for everyone involved? How can I show up with my queen energy? And this is not gendered. This is, you can embrace a queen energy no matter what. It's like, how can I be so convicted in my beliefs that I can like sit and chill and trust that my tool will take me to the right place? And I see this palm up open as a welcome, as a come to me, come closer. It's kind of an invitation for people to participate. But what's beautiful about the queen, like, I actually call her, I don't want to gender, I call this card the boss bitch card, because it's someone that, like, it's what I admire as a boss bitch. It's someone who has boundaries. So this queen is saying, yes, community, come closer. Yes, I'm going to serve you. Yes, I'm going to show up for you and do what I need to do for you. But this sword right here, you're not going to cross it. Like, that's my barrier between me and you. Like, you can come so close to me and we can share this space and we can love each other, and you can utilize like the healing power or the resources from my tools, but you aren't going to take them. Like, you're not going to like sit on my lap. Like, we're not going to like overextend ourselves to serve. So to me, this card is kind of reminding people of like their own boundaries, their own extent of energy. It also makes me feel like leadership doesn't have to be hard. That I mean, the queen is chilling. Like, they're just like, yeah, okay, come on. It makes me feel like you have the capacity to handle difficult situations with ease and grace. But it also tells me that you are not afraid to use the tool of the sword when you need it. You are not afraid to be direct when necessary, to like set the boundary, to express the no, to say no. I think that is a big one. Like, no, like, just say no. And it also just kind of feels like, if this resonates, like, really sit with it. If not, that's okay. But it's like, if you have an idea about how you want to build your business, your brand, your work life outside of the medical field, like, that is possible for you. And it doesn't have to be something where you are overexerting yourself. Like, it can be something that can be achieved just by allowing yourself to use your knowledge and skills and be so precise and like concise about where it is that you want to go. It's saying, just write it down, write that vision down, trust that it can happen, and trust that you're going to invite the people who need to participate. Like, they're going to be there, they're going to show up.
Well, that deeply resonates with me today, especially today, which I won't get into because otherwise this podcast will be 3, 4, 5 hours long. But
we can talk for hours.
We
That's
can
great.
talk for hours. Thank you for that. That was such a beautiful reading. That was such a beautiful interpretation. And thank you, RaDonna, for just being you, but pouring into the audience today. Like I said, I told y'all she's not a doctor, but I go to her because I feel healed after talking to her. And I love the fact that you use, like I say, tarot to, like you said, to really start to take care of yourself, and then teach other women, teach your clients to take care of themselves as well too. So, you know what? And then I keep feeling led to find it in my deck. So let me give you guys
I
another
love this.
picture. The same card. I'll try to find it for myself. But as I do, RaDonna, is there anything else that you would like to share with the Docs Get Money podcast? If someone is looking for a life coach that has a different perspective as per you, for you, how can they get in touch with you?
They can email me at RaDonnaReed.com. That is the quickest way to get in touch. The offerings are virtual. So like how you and I meet, we can be anywhere in the world and meet for an hour once a month, get the energy in check, everything kind of going. And if you happen to be in central Ohio or really in Ohio, because everything's a quick drive, we have a studio in Franklinton called Inspo Studio, and that is where I have hired readers to read for the community. And the space is like all pink. It's just very vibrant. It's like unlike, I think, any mystical kind of shop or energy that I've been into. So I think it's cool and people should come.
I love it. And I finally found mine, which this
Yeah.
is a different deck. It's called the Modern Goddess Tarot deck, but very similar imagery, but not exactly the same, but still sitting on, this one is a rock with kind of like that chill, laid back energy of, hey, I got this, but I got my boundaries too, because it got, this one is a
Mm-hmm.
bow in their hand and then the sword in the other. But then I love the fact that there's just like a little bitty butterfly that's just
Yeah.
sitting right on the sword, and there's a full moon, which also to me makes me think of just opportunity, enlightenment, just really showing up in just the full brightness and the fullness of who you are. So that's in my deck, y'all. Y'all are learning something about me. That's what it looks like. That's so good.
I love it. And it kind of gives me the feeling of like the swiftness and the lightness of decisions, because often we're seeing like decisions and choices are overwhelming and they can feel like pressure. But the butterfly, there's a bird on
The bird,
there,
bird in the
the full
hair.
moon. Yeah, it's a kind of like decisions can be fast, they can be easy and done with, and light. I mean, it kind of makes me feel like most of the time people already know what they want to do. It's just a matter of accepting that you've already decided what it is that you're going to do and moving, like making moves on it, committing to it.
Ah, I love it. I love it. RaDonna, thank you again so many different times for being here. And hopefully, by popular demand, you'll be able to come back. I'd love to have you back and talk
Would love
more to the
that. Yeah.
audience. This has been fantastic. So, without further ado, you guys, please go check out RaDonna. All of her information is going to be in the show notes. But without further ado, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Docs Get Money podcast. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Docs Get Money podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday wherever you find your favorite podcast. Share, comment, follow, and subscribe to the Docs Get Money podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to know more, visit me, Dr. Kimberly Brown, at KimberlyBrownMD.com, and be sure to follow me at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram. And until next time, let's go get this money, honey.